Okay, I'm just gonna get started. Contract to close training today. We usually focus this training on when we work with buyers because most new agents have a tendency to have buyers as their first clients. But a lot of the process can be very similar regarding or whether or not you have a seller client or a buyer client. But what we're going to focus on today is if we were buyer agents. And, training today is a high level overview of some of the steps that we take between accepted offer and getting to closing. Not only the steps that we take, but some of the resources and the tools that we use. But what it is not going to be today is a deep dive into zip forms, DocuSign, or Command. Now, those three platforms are platforms that we'll be leveraging to get that offer accepted and to help get us through compliance into closing, but we're not going to take a deep dive into those today. But what we will cover is our accepted offer checklist that we have created, as well as just some tips around how to organize things, such as date, deadlines, and communications. So there's a lot of people that are involved in a real estate transaction, right? So it's you, it's your clients, it's the other agent across the table, it's their clients. There could be a lender, there could be a title company. There actually could be two title companies, one that is working with the seller and one that's working with the buyer. There's home inspectors, TCs, appraisers. There might be tenants if if it's a leased property. And sometimes like family members get involved, right? Like uncles, grandparents, whatever has you. There's just a lot of parties that are involved in the transaction. And it's our job to help streamline and identify the right people to give updates to, the right people to be providing documentation to, because not everybody needs to get involved, but there are potentially a lot of people. Now, how we start working from accepted offer into closing, everybody kind of does it a little bit differently. In theory, the process is the same, but the steps that we take to get to closing date might differ, as well as the technology that people use might differ as well. But most agents are drafting their offers in zip form. That's a piece of technology that you'll leverage. We have to upload things into Command in order to get compliance to review. Some of the most basic things that Google offers with email, calendars, drives, those are resources that you should take advantage of. The checklist that we'll go over today. And then there's a website that I leverage called timeanddate.com that helps us understand key dates and deadlines. So these are some of the things we'll go through today. But really the first step is, once you get that accepted offer, now what do you do? And my number one thing is always heading to our website, KW Realty MKE, and going into the agent hub, into new associate resources and pulling up a checklist. So I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to go to our website. Can you guys see KW Realty MKE? Did it switch over? Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go into the agent hub and I'm going to scroll down to new associate resources. And here you'll see in the middle our listing and buyer checklists. I'm going to hit view. And we've got a PDF that's 3 pages, and each page is for a different situation. The first one is if you have a new listing, what are the steps that you need to take in order to get that listing ready to go to market? The second page is if you get an accepted offer on that listing, what do you do? And then the third page is the page that we're going to really focus on today is what happens when we get an accepted offer and we're working with a buyer, what needs to happen. So you'll see excerpts of this checklist in the slides that I'll be sharing. But after today's training, I will send you guys PDFs of the checklists, and I will send you also PDFs of the slides that I'm going to share so you can use them for reference moving forward. But this is where I get my checklist. So really, once you get that offer accepted, in my mind, the first 24 hours is mission critical to setting yourself up for success. You want to make sure you're communicating in a clear and articulate way and in a timely manner. You want to make sure that you're organizing all of your dates, documents, communications, what have you. And really just spending a little bit of time to get yourself organized is going to help you in the long run. And also being cognizant of those first 24 hours and actually taking action and getting some next steps in motion is also key, because it just helps keep things moving. You have momentum from getting the offer accepted. Let's use that momentum to carry us through into the next steps of the transaction. So what I've done here is just taken a screenshot of some of those first steps on that checklist for an accepted offer working with a buyer. So the first thing that you're going to do, if you haven't already done, is adding your buyer's information into Command. So you have to add them as a contact, and that you also need to add them as a new buyer within the opportunity section of Command. If you don't know how to do that, we have a lot of Command and zip form training videos on our YouTube channel. By all means, like take a look at those. I'll even put a link in to it, the follow-up email. But it's really important that you guys have that all set and updated in Command. Oh, and plug for Thursday's marketing and tech training. It's actually zip form and Command training. So if you want to go to that, 11 o'clock virtual, be there. Okay. So once we have our buyer and our opportunity created in Command, we're going to start uploading all of the fully executed documents that have been signed by both parties. Remember, fully executed means both parties have signed and received the documents. So you're going to start uploading things into Command. There's various phases of the transaction where Command has kind of organized how you should upload your documents. So there's a consultation folder, there's an under contract folder. I'll go real quickly into Command so you guys can see that. So let's say, no, I don't have anything in here. Okay. Let's say I'm in my opportunity and within the documents section, you will have to identify what kind of property it is. And Command then will organize your opportunity into phases. So once it's listed, once it's under contract, once it's closed. And if you click on these phases, it'll show you the different documents pertinent to that phase of the transaction that need to be uploaded to Command for compliance review. So anything in red is required. If I go to the under contract phase, you'll see there's a different set of documents that need to be uploaded. So, just familiarize yourself with Command and the opportunity. But when I talk about needing to upload things into Command under those various folders, that's what I'm talking about. So we'll be uploading signed buyer agency agreements, or if they aren't a client and you had them sign the disclosure to customer, you would upload that. You upload our disclosure forms. Oops. And then once you have all of your offer documents, you'll be uploading those as well. So if there was a counter offer, you upload that, your offer to purchase, GMAR Addendum A, the RECR, Addendum S. If it's a condo, there are some additional documents that would need to be uploaded. You'll also use this, you use Command as well to upload things like the earnest money receipt. If there was a home inspection, you can upload the home inspection report to the folder as well. But then throughout the transaction, there might be amendments that get signed or notices that get signed, and those would get updated and sent through Command for review by compliance as well. So this might not be an exhaustive list, but this is a pretty solid list in terms of the documents that are going to be most frequently used in your transaction. In addition to that first 24 hours, so we're uploading all of our documents, We're also adding some details to command to help us get things organized. So we're going to add what our estimated closing date is going to be, and we can take that from our accepted offer. You would have had a closing date identified. You'll update command and add that. You'll also use the first 24 hours to start sending these fully executed documents to the applicable parties. So if you're a buyer, or if your client is a buyer, and if they're working with a lender, we're going to send the fully executed offer agreements or offer documents to not only the buyer, they need to get their own copies, but the lender will receive a copy as well. And then really the next important thing, once you've got all of your documents organized, you're starting to get them reviewed in compliance or in command, we're going to now need to start to figure dates and deadlines. And before I get to dates and deadlines, one thing that I want to point out, and it's at the top of the checklist, is that you need to get your documents uploaded within 7 days of acceptance. So you need to make sure that you get all that stuff ready to go. Okay. I'm going to go back to my thing here. But dates and deadlines is something too that it's really important that you start organizing and you start communicating those dates to the various parties, because what we want to make sure is everybody is working on the same timeline and have the same dates. So what I like to do is get out the offer and I'll start writing literally on a piece of paper, earnest money, 5 days. Home inspection, 10 days, yada, yada, all the way down. What I then do to try to figure out, okay, what is the actual date then that this translates into? I use timeanddate.com, and I'll show you that in a second, to help me identify the dates. So say I've already done that and I've got all of my deadlines transposed into like an email. I'm going to email the buyer so they know these deadlines as well. I'm going to email the dates to the lender and really highlight any of the things that the lender is going to be responsible for. But then I'm also just going to make sure if there's any hot, pressing, immediate deadlines that those get highlighted. In addition to dates and deadlines, if you recall, just when I shared the checklist, one of the items that you need to also get uploaded into command within 7 days of acceptance is submitting your commission in command. So there's a whole training as well that teaches you how to do that. But what we want to start doing is ensuring that we've got our commission entered into command so we can have it reviewed, approved, and it'll be good to go once all documents are approved and once closing has taken place. So that's another thing that we need to do fairly quickly. So some of the resources that we use during this first 24 hours, for me, it's pretty basic. I'm leveraging Gmail templates. So over time, you're going to realize you start sending out the same type of emails to people with every transaction. So, and I'll show you a second, like what that might look like using some of the templates that I've created. But I always send out an offer to purchase summary. I send out next steps after they get an accepted offer. I send out key dates and deadlines. And then I'm always sending out an email too, once it's closing week, what needs to happen and what do the buyers need to bring. So I'll show you those in a second. But then this website, timeanddate.com, helps you identify the actual dates that your contingencies and some of your deadlines translate to. So what you always need to make sure you do when it comes to dates is the day the offer was accepted, the day after starts day one. Okay. So you always work from the date that it was accepted on. So if I go to timeanddate.com, there is a date calculator. I click on date. So let's say we got our offer accepted today. That's going to be my start date. The day that the offer is accepted is your start date. So I'm going to put the 25th. That's my date. And say if I think about how the offer document is structured, usually the first deadline is earnest money. And maybe I had 3 days for earnest money. I put 3, I calculate new date, and there it tells me this is when earnest money is due. Then the next thing in the document or in the offer might be your home inspection contingency. Maybe we said that would be due in 12 days. I never change the start date because that's always going to be the date that the offer was accepted. I put 12, calculate new date. That's going to be Sunday, April 6th. So you get the gist, right? Like you always put in the date that you had the offer accepted, and then it'll help you calculate actually what day things are due once you put in the number of days here. So how do I communicate this to my clients is then another thing. So let's go to my mail for a second. Let's see here. Offer accepted. Now what? So I have these emails created in Gmail as a template, and I just change the names, I change the dates, depending on who it is that I'm sending this to. So this is my email, accepted offer, now what? Important next steps and information. So I've indicated here, like number 1, we got to deposit earnest money. Who is responsible for it? When is it due? Number 2, we have to update the lender. Number 3, yada, yada, yada. And then this is where I also send a PDF of all of the offer documents into one file. Okay. So that's one example of an email that I always send immediately after the offer gets accepted. Here's another email. This is the email that I sent to the lender. Key dates and deadlines to be aware of. And then I also send them the completed offer as well. And the last person that I send dates and deadlines to is really the listing agent. And what I want to do is make sure that the listing agent and I are on the same page as it pertains to deadlines. So here's an example of the email then that I sent to the listing agent indicating here's our deadlines per our accepted offer, right? Earnest money, appraisal, financing, closing. And this is a perfect example too. He thought that we had the dates wrong, but because we had things written into our contract about Sundays, holidays, what have you, he had a different date, but that was not the case. So it's always important to make sure that you're working along the same deadlines as the other party in the transaction. So back to some tips during this 24 hours. Confirm those dates and deadlines with the listing agent. Give the buyers the heads up during this time too, that there's going to be a lot of information that you are going to be sending them via email, right? You're going to be sending them dates, deadlines, documents. The lender is going to be reaching out to them as well to try to get additional documentation to finalize their loan. So I always just like to say, it's going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose over the next couple of days. You're going to get a lot of information. I am happy to set up time to get on the phone and walk you through any details and answer questions. Also within the 24 hours, big tip, if you've got earnest money that is going to be delivered, make sure you give those instructions to your buyer so they can get on that right away, because that's usually the first thing that needs to be done. But then also remind your buyers that that money that you're using for earnest money will actually be deposited into whatever trust account is holding the money. So that means that the buyers have to have that money readily available and it will be withdrawn from their account. So just something to keep in mind. Then the rest of I put day 25 through 25-ish. It really depends on how your offer was structured and how the deadlines stack up, and what contingencies were waived and you don't need to deal with them, or what contingencies were still included within the offer. But some of the things that happen right after, 48 hours or so after the offer is accepted, we have to make sure that we get home inspections scheduled if we haven't done that already within the first 24 hours. So I always give my buyers a list of home inspectors for them to choose from. I actually do that at the buyer consultation. So they have it sooner versus later. But once your buyer has scheduled the home inspection, it's really important that you send that date and time to the listing agent. And many times you can just schedule the home inspection through Align Showings or Showing Time as you would a showing. But when you go through to schedule it, there's actually different types of appointments that you can indicate that you're scheduling for, like appraisals one, showings one, second showing, etc. So you can actually set that up electronically. Once you do have the home inspection completed, make sure you send that inspection report and any test results back to the listing agent. You're also going to be uploading those documents into the under contract folder within Command. But also during this time, you're going to be making sure that the lender, if there is one, and the buyer is getting financing, that the appraisal has been ordered, that things are on track, and especially make sure you're staying in contact with the lender to see if there's going to be any hiccups as it pertains to meeting the loan commitment deadline. A lot of lenders will actually be pretty proactive and update you and the buyer along the way. But if you haven't heard from the lender, by all means, pick up the phone, send an email, do both, and make sure that you are understanding where everybody is at in the financing piece of the transaction, because sometimes your buyers will be the ones getting the updates and the lender might not copy you on it. And then last but not least, you do have to send the loan commitment over to the listing agent. If that loan commitment is actually signed by the buyers, you send that over. If your buyers give you permission to send over an unsigned loan commitment, you can still do that, but you want to make sure you do that before the contingency deadline. And then if any work has been done coming out of the home inspection, or if there was any repair or maintenance work that needed to get done per the offer, make sure that you get copies of the work that was done, the invoices that were paid, any lien waivers, and if permits were pulled, make sure you get copies of those too. What you're going to want to then do is send copies both to the lender and to the title company, because we need to verify with all parties that the work has been completed and paid. So this kind of happens at various points through that day 2 through 25-ish, right? Because every deadline is going to be a little bit different depending on how your offer is structured. But these are some of the bigger things that do happen during that time. In addition, some tips. Never give the home inspection report to the lender. You do give the home inspection report, though, to the listing agent. If you are doing any type of negotiating as it pertains to credits, price reduction, repairs, if you have to change the closing date, you're going to be using either an amendment or a notice. Regardless of whatever type of document you're using, you need to ensure that you're also remembering to upload those documents along the way into Command, because they will also need to be reviewed by compliance and approved. So sometimes this happens where like closing dates have changed and both parties have signed the amendment indicating such. Agents forget to send it to the title company, or agents forget to send it to the lender, and those parties have no idea that closing has changed. So it's really important that you stay on top of these additional documents that might get executed throughout the transaction, and you're getting them into Command, and then you're also getting them to the other applicable parties. If you have a transaction coordinator, that person is going to be helping you do a lot of this, but you should also make sure that they are doing that. Another tip, and I mentioned it earlier, you can set the home inspection up in aligned showings or showing times similar to how you would a showing. And then also during this time, the title company will be emailing your clients the title commitment. It's something that you need to make sure that you review, but you need to make sure that your clients review it as well. And usually if my clients have specific questions pertaining to title, I will have them reach out directly to the title company so they get answers directly from the source. To me, sometimes title is still a little bit of a mystery, and I'd rather avoid playing the game of telephone and miscommunicate something. I would rather just have my clients go directly to the title company with questions. And then that week or so before closing day, there are still some things that you need to do. I would say a week before closing, make sure you go into command and you go into your opportunity, and that all of the documents that you have uploaded for compliance review have been approved. If you get to closing and not all of your documents have been approved, you will not get paid. So you will only get your commission once everything is approved in command and it looks good to go. Now, if something gets returned in command, it's not approved, the compliance team does a really nice job as to giving you a note within command. They'll send it through command and they'll tell you what needs to be changed. But it's your responsibility to make sure that you change those things and get things corrected in a timely manner. It's also important too to go back and make sure that anything that you've put in the opportunity as it pertains to closing date, if there's been any changes, make sure you change the closing date to reflect the new date. The compliance team uses the date that you've put into command as their deadline as well to make sure that they're reviewing everything in a timely manner based on when closing is going to happen. And then also that week before closing or week and change is your opportunity then to also schedule the final walkthrough. So that is something that you would work directly with the listing agent on. Find out when your buyer or your sellers are going to be leaving, when are they going to be moving, are they going to be in the middle of packing? But in the offer, it indicates that your buyer is able to have a final walkthrough within 3 days prior to close. So it's really important that you set that final walkthrough up directly with the listing agent and just find out from the listing agent where the sellers are going to be in the process of moving. You also, once you get that set up through the listing agent, you can also then put the walkthrough in aligned showings or showing times as well. That just kind of seals the deal and it gets it on everybody's calendar. But I would first call the listing agent to get that figured out. And then also during this week before closing, I'm making sure that I've added my buyers to any smart plans and command, or I've got them set up on a communication plan that will allow me to stay in contact with them. We know that so many clients never hear from their agents again after closing. So don't be that agent. Set them up on smart plans, set them up on some type of marketing plan so it gets you in flow and it keeps you top of mind with them well beyond closing. And then when you get to closing, if you attend closing in person, which by all means you should strive to do, you will receive a closing statement from the title company that has been signed by all sellers and all buyers. And then you'll also get a commission check along with that closing statement. You then turn both documents in to any one of the KW front desks. The front desk will then take the closing statement, take the commission check it in, process it, and give it to the MCA office, who will then process your commission. Now, again, you will get paid when all of your documents have been approved in command. All documents have been approved by compliance. If you turn in your closing statement and commission check to the North Shore desk, We process all 5 offices. We process all the commissions here in North Shore. Typically, if you hand it in directly to the North Shore office, you'll get your commission within 1 to 2 days. If you hand it in to Southwest or Lake Country, Prestige, or TOSA, still hand it into the front desk. That front desk will then put it in a courier package and it will be couriered to the North Shore office on the same day. But it just does take a little bit extra time to process that commission if it comes from another office. And I would say 2 to 3 days to have that processed. If you don't go to closing and you're not there in person, what then happens is the title company will send in your closing statement and commission check to the North Shore office on your behalf. So you don't have to be there, but honestly, it's quicker, it's better. Be there, and you really want to be there for your buyers too, since you've helped them along the way. And it's just kind of like the final milestone and the final hurrah to be able to celebrate with them on closing day. And then once things have closed, it's always good practice to go back into MLS, into that actual listing, and make sure that the listing agent has closed out the listing correctly by indicating the correct purchase price, that they marked you as the selling agent, that if there were any concessions or if it was financed or whatnot, like that, all of that information gets added at the time of close by the listing agent. Just make sure it's correct. And then once again, make sure you have some type of communication plan to stay in contact and to follow up with your buyers and your clients on a regular basis. So don't be those people that never follow up. Bad. That's it. Does anybody have any initial questions? I know it's kind of a lot, but I really do think like as you get your first accepted offer, get that checklist out, start to organize your thoughts, and any one of your PC coaches, anybody on the leadership team can help direct you to somebody then that can really guide you throughout the process if you need some extra support. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, good. All right, so I promised I would send, let me just check the chat. Okay, great. Thank you. I will send you the slides to this presentation. I will send you the checklist. And then I'll also send you a video to our last command and zip form training. So you've got that. But again, there's another one happening at 11 o'clock on Thursday if you want to jump on live. Otherwise, it'll also be recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel. All right, that's all I got for now. I appreciate